and retake the cop back. That's the best way I can answer that question, sir.
When did we find out Sergeant Mace didn't survive?
Later that night, we were somewhat. We didn't. I guess I can say we, but it felt very draining through the day, and then finally there was a sorrow that went through the troop because we found out that he was killed, and that's one of the main things that kind of affected me. So.
I did. Drew Mickelson from King 5. Thank you for speaking with us here today. You talked about convincing Sergeant Larson, and at one point he told you something along the lines of, "Look, you're no good to Mace if you're dead." Explain that thought process and how you convinced him to go out there unarmed to get Mace.
I wasn't unarmed, but I did have my rifle slung. The incoming firepower was so intense. If you look at the sheer numbers or understanding that there was 5 of us there at the fighting position. 3 men lost their lives there, and then there was also 2 men who lost their lives trying to support that position. That's the only way I can compare the amount of firepower that was coming down. When I saw Mace and I was told that I couldn't get to him, it broke my heart. You can see a good man was lying there, wounded, begging for my help. So dehydrated that he couldn't even have tears, but you can actually see that he was in pain. But Larson, being the NCO that he is, great leader, he knew that if I went out there, I'd be dead too, and for that I owe him my life. When I was able to get to the vehicle behind us, it kind of signaled that, you know, maybe the firepower had shifted enough to where we can go get Mace, and that's what I think convinced him that I can get him.
What were your injuries?
Who? My injuries, I received hearing loss, a little bit of shrapnel, and a bunch of scrapes and bruises and a concussion. Yes?
I was just wondering, I had read in a previous interview you had done in Colorado that it was hard for you to go back to the Medal of Honor ceremony in January. I guess you had stated you had not gone back for that, and that it's just been recently that you've been able to perhaps, you talked about just recently, you're able to talk about things more, and I don't know if that's involved counseling, but I know these are all parts of the aftermath of battle and ones that we're all understanding more. And I know these are probably more difficult things to talk about, but it would be great to just get some sense of how you're dealing with things now and share that with us.
I have my wife. She is she lets me know where I belong if I'm off in my direction or if I'm saying or doing anything that is incorrect. She makes sure that I know where my place is, and that is by her side. The ceremony for Clint Romeshay is another incident where I'm kind of uncomfortable about being around the families of the fallen because I feel that I owe them so much. I feel embarrassed to be in their presence because they have lost so much. I've spoken with Mace's mother, and she is just an excellent woman to where I try to absorb strength from her. Also, yes, I have done counseling. I have been in counseling ever since that incident, and because of that counseling, I am able to be a good husband and a good father. At least that's what she tells me. And I probably will continue to go to counseling just so that I can improve and be able to speak to individuals like yourselves.
I can ask you. So what do you think of him?
Answer that. He's my husband, so I love him. I am truly honored to be here and be able to be by his side through all of these situations. he blows my mind every day, you know, just every little thing. I couldn't be more blessed to have such a wonderful husband.
As you look at the narrative, and I'm not sure what he told you about what happened. He may have said, oh, yeah, we had a firefight and everybody's going to be okay. But now that you've read, I'm not sure if you have read details, but knowing what he went through and the things that he did and the other men that didn't come back and those that did, what are your thoughts on the heroic actions of his?
It's scary. It was very overwhelming to hear what they all experienced that day. I am not. I could never wrap my mind around it, around the severity of what they went through and what they had to do, because I've never been a part of anything so dramatic. So it was hard to understand and cope. Hearing it more throughout this open, you know, he's talking about it more. It's heart-wrenching. It makes me cry. And when he had to go back to Afghanistan, it just made me relive everything that he had told me that it could happen again, and was very hard for me. But, you know, you just have to be here as a support system for him. I have to be strong. I have to help him be strong. And so that's what I try to do.
Your bio says that you're going to be moving on to a cadre position at the Warrior Transition Battalion. Is that correct?
If they'll take me, one of the things, once this has happened, I was actually checking in to be a cadre at the Warrior Transition Unit, an excellent unit designed kind of to do the things that I'm going to try to do, is get rid of the stigma of post-traumatic stress, because there are a lot of soldiers out there that have it, and they're too ashamed to talk about it or to get the help, and then eventually, whether it's now or in the future, it becomes an issue. Warrior Transition Unit, I thought, was an excellent place for me, just because my experience and the guys and the girls, or I'm sorry, the men and women that are there, they would listen to somebody who's seen it, done it, been there, and I was hoping to play an excellent part there. However, with this happening, I'm transitioning to what I'm doing right now to put the idea out there a lot better, and I think that's an excellent way to, I guess, utilize my service in the Army. After I've completed this type of job or task, then I'm definitely considering going back to the Warrior Transition Unit just to see what I can do to help them out.
When did you redeploy? And did you deploy? You deployed again to Afghanistan?
Yes, ma'am.
When was that?
That was 8 months ago I returned, and then 6 months before that, I deployed with the Arikara Troop 81 Cav. I was a section leader. I had an excellent platoon, and they pretty much supported me, and I tried to support them the best we could. Luckily, the worst case scenario did not happen, so I'm very happy for those soldiers because of that and their families. But you know, we've moved on, and now here we are. Does that answer your question?
And if I could just ask one more, how do you feel about going to the White House next month to receive this award?
Extremely nervous. DC is where it all started. The independence, the history, everything. I'm looking forward to going there, and if they let me, if we have time to see the sites, to try to absorb some of the history. We've tried to get Jaden to learn a little bit better about it and feel pride with it. But going to the White House and meeting the Commander-in-Chief is truly an honor, and yes, I'm very nervous.
What were you doing at the time of the attack?
When it started? Yeah. I was in my that position was attacked so often that you get used to waking up to machine gun fire, and you get into a habit of just getting up, throwing your shoes on, your gear, and going to your position. That day, my position was to support LRAS 2. Yeah, does that answer your question, sir? Okay.
So initially, did you not feel that attack was another day of at first? Yes.
When you first wake up, you're still kind of groggy, but when I came to the front door and saw the amount of rounds impacting, I instantly thought something was different. But it wasn't until I saw the look on Mace's face when he was pulling magazines out of my kit that I truly knew that this was the main firefight.
I got a quick question. We see a polished staff sergeant sitting here now. At the time of this, you were a specialist out of Fort Carson in Colorado. What are your thoughts on the mountain post and the fond memories you have of deploying out of there and the men and women you served with there? And as far as the people in southern Colorado, how proud should they be?
Colorado is beautiful. I loved being there. I was going to extend there, but because my mother, Paula Carter, she lives in Spokane, Washington, I wanted Fort Lewis so that I could spend more time with my daughter. It's only a 5-hour drive to Spokane, so I could fly my daughter up and we could hang out at her place and enjoy that. I was able to meet my beautiful wife here, and we have a nice place here, and now my daughter can actually just come directly to us. In fact, we spent this last weekend with my mother. So Fort Carson, Colorado, the outdoorsy stuff, it's just a beautiful place. I have many friends there, and I hopefully will get to visit there soon.
You have 3 children?
I do.
Boys, girls?
I have Jaden, who's 14 years old. I've got Madison, who is 8, and I have little Sierra, who is just over 8 months.
They'll all be going with you. How are they taking this in? That's a question for mom. What are they thinking of dad? And obviously the baby doesn't know much about it.
Yeah.
What's this honor been like for them?
Oh, well, it's been a little overwhelming. They're children, so they don't quite know what they're getting into. Jaden, our son, the 14-year-old, he is very honored. Doesn't quite know how to deal with it. He's kind of quiet, and I think he'll get a wake-up call when we get to DC. And the 8-year-old, she is just can't wait to go buy her dress. So, she loves it.
Question, Staff Sergeant. I just wonder with the concussions and such that you spoke of, do you have any diagnosis of mild TBI as well?
I haven't read the medical report. I've noticed a little bit of memory loss. It's kind of hard to pay attention to certain things, but I'm told that's just because I'm getting old. So.
Good morning, Staff Sergeant. Staff Sergeant Chapman from the 5th Mobile Public Affairs Detachment. Quickly, what do you think inside of you made you make the decisions that you made that day?
A long time ago, I told myself that if I was ever placed in a combat situation, that I wouldn't let fear make my choices for me. And inside, all I thought about was supporting the men in that position. And then when Mace was down there, it was hard to think about anything else but doing what I could to get to him.
One last one here. What was your initial feeling when you were told that you'd been recommended for the Medal of Honor?
I was still going through some difficulties then, and I was so concerned about the men that we lost and my good friends that it didn't even faze me. It was just another medal. I don't want to put down the Medal of Honor or what it means, but when you've lost family, it doesn't faze you. It's not what you're thinking about. You just I didn't feel angry that we lost him. I just felt the loss. I felt sad.
If I could ask you, with 400 enemy forces bearing down and you're just 54, what does that say about your training, your fellow soldiers' training, that you're able to withstand that kind of onslaught?
I have complete respect for my NCOs and the officers appointed above me. They did what they could given the situation. We spent most of our off time fortifying our positions and making it to where we could survive an attack like that. We brainstormed, we trained to adapt. On that day, with the support of all the aviators and the Latvians, we were able to hold back, I guess you can say, the hordes, and win the day. But it was still still extreme high price. Several were wounded. 8 men were down, and then another one later from PTS died, Ed Faulkner, and it's just kind of hard to picture.
You were a Marine before, is that true?
Yes, ma'am.
Or when was your...
I was in the Marine Corps from 98 to 02. I was a combat engineer.
And were you born in Spokane?
I was. I graduated high school also from Spokane, North Central High School.
When did you know the enemy was in the wire? Was it by sight or a report you heard?
By sight, yes. I think the first one that I saw was about 30 yards in front of me, ducking behind a bush when we were trying to exfil LRAS 2.
Was there a time you thought this was it? And especially finding that radio, letting the others know that you were there so they could feel confirmed that at least your position was at least being held, that kept everybody together?
Understand what you mean by this was it.
Was there a point where, because you didn't have any communication with the others, you didn't know if the enemy forces would just overrun your position?
The idea of this is it, as in the cop was being overrun, yes, that came to mind. Sergeant Larson and I discussed it. But at no point in time did we ever have it enter in our head that we were going to give up or surrender. The training that we received and the trust and confidence that I had in my fellow soldiers meant that no matter what happened, we would fight until there's nobody left. So when you say this is it, the combat outpost was breached, the enemy was there, but this is it as in time to give up, that never, ever came to mind.
You had mentioned there was a point where, not to give up or anything, but there was a point where you were unsure whether the rest of the post was overrun, and you thought about going down the river to the next cop.
There was a point. Like I said, we train and discuss worst case scenarios. There's a plan A, plan B, plan C, and it keeps on going. So if the worst case scenario of everybody else was fallen, and we were still there to survive, we're still there to fight to the last round.
You talked about potentially working with soldiers PTSD. I mean, is that something you're still battling? Always will be?
It's a PTS, post-traumatic stress, isn't something that just disappears. You utilize your family structure, the Army family, and also your home family. You rely on their support to keep you moving along. I felt that I would be an excellent cadre for the Warrior Transition Unit because of my experience with it. So I can take a soldier and just talk to him one-on-one. Hey, this is what's going to happen. It's not going to be easy, and it's going to take a while. But you will improve. You will do a lot better. You just need to go and get the help you need.
I want to make sure everybody gets an opportunity to ask a question if you have any. Kevin, do you have a question?
I do.
Kevin McCarty with Cairo TV. Given your willingness to talk about post-traumatic stress with us the way you have, and wanting to work with other soldiers, and now getting a Medal of Honor, do you think you can become a voice for the Army and for soldiers where post-traumatic stress is concerned?
If they let me, I would be honored to do it. Like I said earlier, Ed Faulkner died because of post-traumatic stress. and there's a lot of stigma about it still. And so the Army treats it like as if it's a combat wound, because it is a combat wound. It's something that needs time to heal, and the best way to do that is utilize the facilities that the Army provides for the behavioral health and whatever else is necessary. You have, family, you've got the Army family, and the stigma is slowly going away, but I'm just worried more along the lines as the new soldier who's trying to prove themselves by not seeking help. But in the end, it's not effective for the Army family if somebody's having issues. So we train our NCOs to be active in their lives and also in their training, to where if there is something wrong, then they can see it and assist in getting treatment for the wound.
When do you, Rachel McChord, when do you anticipate starting in this new role?
Well, I guess by me actually speaking about it, I kind of already have. I'm not sure if that's the complete direction that we're going to go, but if any soldier needs help, then facilities are there. And if I have time, I'd like to continue to assist individuals if they need it.
Joe, the KRDO question?
Sergeant Carter, you kind of alluded to this already. This is a question on behalf of KRDO back in Colorado Springs. But you were living in Fort Carson. You were a Fort Carson soldier at the time of these actions. This is either for you or Shannon or both. What are your fondest memories of the Mountain Post in your time there? And what would you like to tell the people back in Colorado Springs who are honored as well as the people here outside of Joint Base Lewis-McChord?
The Colorado Springs or Fort Carson, one of the things that sticks to my head is the beauty of the area. The Garden of the Gods, Seven Falls, even the incline is an awesome thing to work with. The people of Colorado Springs are very friendly. I've definitely spent some time, going to the clubs and the establishments there, and just hanging out. I have several very good friends that still are living in that area, and they should be proud not of me, but of the fact that that post produces some excellent soldiers.
I just wondering, Staff Sergeant, there's been a lot written, of course, about Cop Keating, books, many articles, and one of the things that's come out is, of course, the delays that kept the post from closing on schedule, and then, of course, the fact that after so much sacrifice, it was closed. And I just wondered, when you look back on your experiences there, are there what-ifs there, like what if it had closed earlier, or is there any bitterness there, or is that just not really part of the mix?
It's not part of the mix. We don't choose a lot of the things that happen to us in our lives. All we do is try to cope as well as we can. Luckily, the members of Black Knight Troop performed excellently that day, and the aviators and Lafayans, we made it to where an impossible situation became possible, and that I can't forget, and I don't think anybody else can.
We've got time for two more. Okay. Sergeant Carter, got any closing comments?
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming out, and thank you for showing your support for the Army.